Hi everyone. Today's lesson 99, solve rational equations. Just remember, rational equations are just those equations where at least one part has a rational expression in it. So let's look at some examples. Solve rational proportion. Remember, proportions are two ratios that are equal to each other. Okay, in order to solve these, we need to cross multiply and then solve for the variable. Okay, so this first example, we have 3 over x is equal to 5 over x minus 6. Our first step is to cross multiply. So 3 times x minus 6. So I have 3 times x, which is 3x. 3 times a negative 6 is a negative 18. And then because both ratios are equal to each other, so when I cross multiply, that's one side of the equal sign. The other side of the equal sign is the other cross. So now x times 5, which is 5x. Now I just need to solve for x by getting all the x's to one side. So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. And I have a negative 18 equals 2x. Now to get x by itself, I do the opposite. The opposite of multiplying by 2 is dividing by 2. So I divide by 2 on both sides. X equals a negative 9. Now here I do need to make sure that negative 9 does not make any of these expressions, these rational expressions, equal to be undefined, or you'll find out that they would be an extraneous solution, which just means they're undefined. The denominator cannot equal 0. So if I plug in negative 9 in for x, I want to make sure that I don't have any undefined terms. So 3 over negative 9 is a negative 1/3. Over here, 5 divided by a negative 15 also gives me a negative 1/3. So I don't see any undefined terms there. So x does equal negative 9. I have you try this one. Actually, no, we'll do this example ourselves together. So again, I cross multiply. I have x times x minus 1. So x times x is x squared. X times a negative 1 is a negative x. This side has to equal, cross multiplying the other direction, 4 times 3 is 12. Here I would have a trinomial if I make it equal to 0. So if I subtract 12 on both sides, I end up with x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0. So now I just need to factor that trinomial. So what do I multiply to get negative 12, but add them together gives me a negative 1. Well, negative 4 times a positive 3 gives me a negative 12. Negative 4 plus 3 gives me a negative 1. Therefore, I have two binomials, which tells me x can be two different numbers. So now if I make both of them equal to 0, to get x by itself, I add 4 to both sides. So here, x can equal a positive 4. Over here, so I subtract 3 on both sides, x can equal a negative 3. But I wanted to verify to make sure that none of them will make the rational equation undefined. So if I put 4 in for x, here I end up with 1 equals 3 divided by 3 is 1, so that works. So I know 4 is a solution. I put a 3 in there. So 3 over 4 equals 3 over 3 minus 1. end up with a negative 3, I should say. Negative 3/4 equals a negative 3/4. So I know x can equal a negative 3. Therefore, those are my two solutions. You may do example 1C yourself. Example 2, use the least common denominator to solve addition equations. What they're asking you to do here is get rid of the fractions by multiplying by the least common denominator. So that's what we're going to do here. So if I rewrite the problem, I have 3/x plus 16/2x equals, I'm going to make this 11/1. Okay, so what is the least common denominator of x, 2x, and 1? The least common denominator would be 2x. If I multiply everything by 2x, I get rid of all my fractions, and I'm just dealing with whole numbers or integers. So do this, 2x divided by x, the x's cancel out. I just have 2 times 3, which is 6. 2x divided by 2x is 1. 1 times 16 is 16. 2x times, or divided by 1 is just 2x. 2x times 11 equals 22x. Add like terms over here. 6 plus 16 is 22 equals 22x. Get x by itself. Divide by 22. Therefore, x will equal 1. And I can verify that if I put 1 in for x, I won't get an extraneous solution. If I put a 1 here, that gives me 3. Put a 1 here, that gives me 2. So 3 divided by 1 is 3. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 3 plus 8 is 11. So therefore, x can equal positive 1. Let's look at this next example here. If I rewrite this, I have 12/2x plus 16/4x equals 5/1. The least common denominator of 2x and 4x, I know I have to have an x in there. The least common denominator of 2 and 4 is 4, because it can't be smaller than 4x. So I multiply everything by 4x. I can get rid of all my fractions. So a 2x divided by 4x divided by 2x just gives me 2. 2 times 12 is 24. 4x divided by 4x is 1, plus 16. 4x divided by 1 is 4x. 4x times 5 equals 20x. 24 plus 16 is 40. 40 equals 20x. Get x by itself, I divide by 20. Therefore, x equals positive 2. Again, I can verify that by putting a 2 in here, putting a 2 in here. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 3 plus 2 does give me 5. Therefore, x is 2. Here, using the same thing, but now we're subtracting the equations. Again, I'm going to rewrite this. So I have 3/x minus 1 minus 2 times x over x, and then I have 5/2x. So now I need to find the least common denominator. I know the least common denominator of x and 2x is 2x. And then I have this x minus 1 that also has to be part of my denominator. So I multiply everything by 2x times x minus 1. So x minus 1, 2x times x minus 1 divided by x minus 1. The x minus 1's cancel out. 2x times 3 is 6x. I have an x down here and I have an x here. So now it's, again, I got to take this 2 with this a negative with this 2. So it's a negative 2 times 2 is a negative 4 times x. It's a negative 4x. Negative 2 times 2 times a negative 1. So negative 4 times a negative 1 is a positive 4. And then I have my equal sign. The two x's cancel out. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times a negative 1 is negative 5. Get all my x's to one side and all my whole numbers and integers to the other side. But before I do that, it's add like terms. So 2x plus 4 equals 5x minus 5. Let's just bring all the x's to the left. So I subtract 5x. Means I have to subtract 4 on both sides. So now I have a negative 3x equals a negative 9. To get x by itself, divide by negative 3. X will equal a positive 3. That would be my answer. I'm going to have you do the same thing on this side. Just remember x minus 2 and then 3 times x. Those two would be your least common denominators. So 3x times x minus 2. And you'll multiply that by every term in your equation. Example 4, checking for extraneous solutions. So as I referred to it before, extraneous solution is just a solution that does not satisfy the original equation, which just means it makes it undefined, makes the denominator equal to 0, and you cannot divide by 0. So here we're going to cross multiply and then make the equation equal to 0, and then finally factor. So here, cross multiply. So x times 2x gives you 2x squared. X times a negative 4 is a negative 4x. Negative 1 times 2x is a negative 2x. Negative 1 times a negative 4 is a positive 4. So if I were to simplify this, you end up with 2x squared minus 6x plus 4. This has to equal, cross multiplying on the other side, x times x. We have x squared. X times 9 is 9x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. If I add like terms, I have x squared plus 7x minus 18. Okay, we need to get all of our terms on one side and equal to 0, so I need to subtract x squared. Subtract 7x and add 18 to both sides. So minus 1x squared minus 7x plus 18. This side equal to 0. I have x squared minus 13x plus 22. Now I got to figure out what do I multiply to get 22, but adding together gives me a negative 13. Well, I know that 11 times 2 gives me 22. So a negative 11 times a negative 2 gives me a positive 22, but if I add negative 11 and negative 2, that gives me a negative 13. Now I make both of them equal to 0, and then I solve for x. So x minus 11 equals 0, add 11 to both sides. X equals 11, and over here, x minus 2 equals 0, add 2 to both sides. X equals a positive 2. I have to make sure that both of these work in this equation. So if I put 11 in for x, I have 11 minus 1 over 11 minus 2 equals 11 plus 9 over 2 times 11 minus 4. Both of these would equal, so this is 10 over 9. And this side, I end up with 20 over 22 minus 4 is 18. If I divide these by 2, that gives me 10/9. So I know x can equal 11. Now if I want to check to see if 2 would work, if I put 2 in here, right here you can already see 2 minus 2 gives me 0. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 divided by 0, that cannot work. So x cannot equal 2, because this would be your extraneous solution. So the only solution that works is x equals 11. Try one more. Here I have x plus 5 equals 2x plus 8. If I cross multiply, I end up with 2x squared. And I have 8x plus 10x is 18x. 5 times 8 is 40. This has to equal, cross multiply on the other side, x times x is x squared. Negative 2x plus 4x is a positive 2x. 4 times a negative 2 is a negative 8. Everything to one side. So I'm going to subtract x squared, subtract 2x, add 8 to both sides. Subtract 1x squared minus 2x plus 8. This gives you 0. This will give you your x squared plus 16x plus 48. Need to factor this. What do I multiply to get 48? Add them together gives me 16. That would be a positive 12 and a positive 4. Make both of these equal to 0. So if I subtract 12 on both sides, x equals a negative 12. Over here, subtract 4 on both sides, x equals a negative 4. Now I have to double check to see if any of those would make this equal to an undefined expression. If I put a negative 12 plus 5 over negative 12 plus 4, that would give you a negative 7 over a negative 8, which is just a positive 7/8. Negative 12 minus 2 over 2 times a negative 12 is a negative 24 minus or plus 8. This will give you negative 14 over a negative 16. If I divide by 2 halves, I end up with a positive 7/8. So x can equal negative 12. Over here, if I put a negative 4 in, if I put this as a negative 4, and this is a negative 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1, 1 over 0. This cannot equal negative 4 because that's extraneous. And an application problem. It takes Samuel 7 hours to paint a house. It takes Jake 5 hours to paint the same house. How long will it take them if they work together? Hint, rate times time equals the number of houses. So I need for Samuel to paint the house. His rate, we don't know the rate, but it takes him 7 hours to do one house. So this, I'll just say this is Samuel. And then Jake takes him, we don't know the rates, but we know it takes him 5 hours to do one house. So I need to solve for the rates. So I divide by 7 on both sides. So Samuel's rate is 1/7. Jake's rate is 1/5. So if they're doing it together, you're going to have Samuel's rates times time plus Jake's rate times time. That will give you the total of one house painted. So if I put in their rates, I have 1/7 T for time plus 1/5 T equals 1. Now the common denominator, the least common denominator, 7 and 5 is 35. So if I want to get rid of the fractions, I want to multiply everything by 35. If I do that, I end up with 35 divided by 7 is 5, so I have 5t plus 35 divided by 5 is 7, so 7t equals 35 times 1 is 35. I'll put this up here. I got 5t plus 7t, which is 12t, equals 35. To get t by itself, I divide by 12. Divide this by 12. The total number of times would be 2 and 11/12 hours. Or you could have it as 2 hours and 55 minutes. Would be the time it takes for them to complete the house if they did it together. I'm going to have you do the last one yourself. You saw it the same way that we just did, just different numbers. Otherwise, your assignment for next time is 1, 16, 18, 23, and 26.